welcome everybody to the World Satsanga for June 2019, and this is the 29th of June. And thank you very much for all your questions. I've got so many questions now. I've got a lot of questions for this particular month from one person, and then I've got enough questions to support July's Satsanga and possibly a little bit of August's Satsanga as well. So thank you very much for sending your questions in. It's always an honour and a pleasure to be able to work in this way. And again, thank Kevin Moore for helping us out in terms of broadcasting the Satsangas on his YouTube channel, More Talk and The More Show. It's a fantastic role that Kevin's playing across the world, and I'm really pleased that he's able to do the work he's doing as well. Do check out his YouTube channel and see what he's doing for everybody in terms of exposing the greater reality so that we can all learn from different angles, of course. Okay, so let's have a look at the agenda for today's Satsanga. It's we're going to look at sentience and sentient weight, which is mass or density, for the first 15 minutes, this short lecture. And then we're going to look over the questions that I've got, which is primarily for an individual this time. Looking at the time, we'll see whether we've got enough time to add in some of the other questions, but I don't think we will do, so we'll probably hold those in abeyance until July, which isn't too far away, to be honest. It's only a few weeks away, so we can work with that. And the end of Meet's meditation is a meditation to become more expansive. Okay, so the talk on sentience. Well, basically, what is sentience? Well, sentience is what we are. The origin is a being, and it created smaller versions of itself to experience, learn and evolve part of its structure, so it could basically progress in terms of its own evolution in different ways. So the source entities are entities, and as an entity created by a being, they have got sentience that has been naturally evolved, if you want to call it that. In this instance, the origin is a being because it naturally evolved through similar or same energies coalescing together and grouping together and creating sort of rudimentary intelligence, and then going through the further collective or collecting together of energies of similar or same type, increasing the intelligence, finding larger groups with this different of these similar energies, increasing the intelligence, sacrificing individuality to create a bigger sort of being, and eventually going through into things like sort of self-awareness, consciousness, creativity, and finally creating sentience. The 20 steps to sentience are part of a presentation that I've been giving recently at the Probe conference, and the multidimensional show in Birmingham as well. The Probe conference, of course, being in St Anne's up by Blackpool in the UK. And Birmingham, of course, is the Birmingham, the UK, not Birmingham, Alabama. So, anyway, we can look at this and understand from this that sentience is something which is basically generated through natural evolution, or it can be given. So, sentience is something which is generated through the evolution of an energy. Or it can be individualized. Bits of it can be taken, divided up, and allowed to use or create smaller versions of oneself. If one is the sentient entity or sentient being that is dividing this sentience up. So in general, sentience is given a body of energy to work with, although sentience is in effect an independent thing, so to speak, in so much as it doesn't need sentience to exist. Sentience doesn't need energy to exist, because sentience is. It's just that it can be created through energy, or it can be created through the separation of sentience from one entity or being to create another one. So sentience is what we are, really. It's the shall we say, the consciousness, the intelligence, the creativity, the personality of what we are. It's that which strives to understand more, to experience, learn and evolve on behalf of itself and its creator and its creator's creator, which is what our true energetic selves are doing. And we, as smaller units of our true energetic selves are doing for our true energetic selves. So sentience is in effect it's either divided from a much larger being or entity, or it is allowed to it is created through the natural evolution of energy. So as a personality or as a collective level of experiences together that creates intellect, if you want to call it that. Sentience is, of course, is above intellect, but it incorporates that. What is it that creates sentient weight or mass or density? So if we look at the amount of sentience that's within a source entity in comparison to the origin, for instance, we would see that it's a minuscule amount in real terms, because the origin is always growing in its polyomniscient sentient self-awareness in comparison to the energies and the size that it's got available to it to experience, learn and evolve within itself. And the difference between the origin sentience and a source entity's sentience, although it's a massive difference, it's unfathomably different, and something we as human beings can't really understand. There nevertheless is a difference, because the source entities are a division of sentience and energy from origin. If we look at it in terms of the difference between a true energetic self, which we sometimes call the oversoul or higher self, or in Hindu terms the Godhead, we start to see a difference in the level of sort of sentience and energy. Not such a big difference as in the difference between the origin and the source entity, but nevertheless it is a big difference in terms of the difference in the sentient weight and energy associated with or individualized from a source entity, specifically our source entity 1, as I sometimes call it, to the true energetic selves that we are now. And again, the difference is so big that we can't possibly quantify it ourselves. However, when we start to get down to the difference between the sentience associated with a true energetic self and a smaller aspect of itself, a soul, or a true energetic self and a shard of an aspect, okay, then we start to another soul, a sort of sub-soul, if you want to call it that. Then we start to see a difference, and we can start to quantify it in terms of percentages rather than actual sort of mass or volume or weight, if you want to call it that, or density. So the difference in sentience associated with a smaller aspect of a true energetic self can be anything between 2.5% of that sentience and 30%. That depending upon whether, depends upon the choice of the true energetic self for a start off, in terms of how much sentience it does assign or associate to that particular aspect that it's projected out from itself to experience, learn and evolve in a, so shall we say, a parallel way to itself. But if the true energetic self projected all 12, shall we say, aspects that it can possibly project, then it could only be able to give 2.5% of its sentience to each of those aspects. That's because it needs to have 70% of its sentience within itself to continue to do its work. So it can only ever distribute 30% of its sentience and energy to those smaller aspects of itself that it can create. But if it decided to for instance, only project 4 aspects, then it can divide that 30% by 4. So basically 30 divided by 4 gives us 7.5%. So it's possible that an aspect could have the sentience associated with 7.5% of the total sentience of a true energetic self. This is rare. There are souls, such as some of the ascended masters, for instance, that do have assigned to them, sometimes and mostly temporarily, by the way, higher levels of sentience associated with an incarnation to help them do what they're doing, or to be of service in the way that they are. But in general, 2.5% of the sentience of a true energetic self is what we are. So this is a measurement, okay? It doesn't describe sentient weight or mass or density right now, but I'll explain what that means later, because it does make a difference in terms of the energies involved in housing 2.5% of the sentience of a true energetic self versus the same energies housing 7.5%, for example. So I'll go with that in a moment. So moving on to the shards, again, an aspect can only project 12 shards, and those 12 shards can only have 30% of the total of sentience associated with a true energetic, associated with an aspect. So it's the same sort of calculation, if you like, between an aspect and a true energetic self, as is a portion to an aspect and a shard. So 70% of the sentience must remain with an aspect, although it can project another 30% in the same way as a true energetic self does for an aspect for a shard. So a shard might be 2.5%, but it could be it could be 30% if it's the only shard that's projected. That's unlikely, but that's the case. So in essence, it's possible that if 4 shards were projected away from an aspect, they also might be given an equal share of the 30% that is possible to project. So they may again get 7.5%. So, but if you think of it in these terms, if an aspect is one of 12 and it's given 2.5% of the sentience, then that particular aspect then projects 12 shards. Then they have 2% or 2.5%. Sorry. Of the 2.5% that the aspects have been given. So you can see that the amount of sentience associated with the energy is less. It's less dense, if you want to call it that, than it would be if it was maintained in the same apportionment as it was. So this gets us down to, if we have an energy of a known size, and that known size is the same between a true energetic self and an aspect and a shard, but the sentience is different. I'm not saying that the energy associated with an aspect is the same as with a true energetic self. Clearly it can't be, but let's just say for example that it is right now, and it gives us an idea. So what's the difference? Why would there be the same energy content, so to speak, between those three entities? A true energetic self, an aspect, and a shard, with different levels of sentience. Well, think of it in these terms. If you think about pressure, for example, pressure is a good way to think about it. Okay, if you think of it in terms of sentience, is really, or can be classified in terms of air pressure within a known vessel. So if you think of it in terms of a tyre on a car, for instance, or a balloon, if the balloon is or the tyre is the known, shall we say, vessel, the energy that houses that sentience, then we know that at standard air pressure, which is 1 atmosphere, it's not 1 bar. One bar is a bit bigger than that. I think it's more like 1 point something bar, 1.01 bar or something. Somebody will tell me what the exact ratio is here, but it doesn't matter. It's not quite the same. It's fairly similar. Then we start to see that actually the sentience associated with, or the air pressure associated with a car tyre allows a certain amount of air to go in there. Okay, that air being the total volume of the tyre. If we increase the pressure, i.e., we want to put more air in there, then we have to increase the pressure to a point where the structure of the tyre will accept a higher pressure. So if we put, for instance, twice the amount of air in there, then we double the pressure, don't we? So we double the pressure, which means we've got twice the amount of air in the tyre of the same size. So we've got double the sentience. So, but the tyre, if you weighed the tyre before it with just just full of air at standard air pressure, it would be one weight. If you weighed it when it had double the pressure in there, it would be another weight. So as we put more and more air in there, we increase the pressure 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times, 30 times, for instance. We start to get an increase in the weight of the tyre because the amount of air is 30 times what it would have been. So this is the same with sentience. The amount of sentience held by an energy increases its density, if you want to call that, its density of sentience. Another way to explain density of sentience is, for instance, considering memory, for instance, on a computer memory stick. If you have a memory stick that's capable of holding 1 megabyte, and this was probably true a long time ago. Some of you might remember floppy disks. Okay, but let's say that a memory stick is capable of holding 1 megabyte. It's the same size and shape. That is a level of memory, if you want to call it, or storage capacity. Then if you look at one that's available today, and you can get 128 gigabyte memory sticks, same size, but the memory capacity is massively bigger. Okay, it is 128,000 megabytes. So because there's 1,000 megabytes for a gigabyte, okay? So it's 128,000 megabytes. So you've got the same size of memory stick, physical size, but 128,000 times the storage capacity. So it's denser. It's denser, but or you could call it finer if you wanted to, and that finitude allows more information to be stored. And this is what sentient weight is, or not so much quality of sentience, but sentient weight. Quality of sentience is the amount of evolutionary content associated with that particular sentience. Okay, the progression associated with it, the experience, the learning, the understanding of the intellect, if you want to call it that. Whereas sentient weight is simply the amount of sentience associated with a particular energy. And it's the same as air pressure in a tyre, or it's the same as an increased level of memory capacity when comparing one particular memory stick compared to another. Okay, so I hope that helps. It's a pretty simple way to think about it, but it is particularly relevant in terms of the space or the area or volume of a particular energy and its capacity, its sentient capacity in terms of the amount of sentience that's assigned to it. Okay, well, I hope that helps. Let's have a look at these questions now, because we're moving on quite quickly, and I've managed to really, I think, probably generate some food for thought in terms of sentience, and it might explain a few things in terms of some of the ways in which some people think, behave, and act these days. And if you think in terms of the backfill people having a different quality of sentience or quality of soul, then you can understand that they don't have the same level of sentience that the original entities or aspects projected from a true energetic self into the human vehicle, into the earth frequencies that we currently have. So there'll be a different level, not higher than the animal, but lower than the human in this respect. Okay, so it's just think of it in those terms. Some individuals won't have the same level of sentient weight or mass associated with their particular aspect or soul. The energy associated with their aspect or soul is projected may be the same, but the amount of sentient weight or mass will be different, and that therefore allows them to be able to use the level of intelligence that they've got, and therefore the intellect associated with the gathering of intelligence, or the gathering of information from intelligence. Okay. Let's go to these questions then we've got from FN, and this is a large group of questions. FN's, along with other people, has been very searching in some of these questions, and a plethora of questions have come my way. And thankfully we're going to be able to finish the questions. There must have been 40 or 50 questions came, and this is the last group of them. And I think we can finish them in this particular satsang, allowing us to move on to the other people's questions as well. I've been separating out these questions and adding them together to other people's questions so we get some balance. But I think these questions are really good altogether this time, so we can work on these and then move on to other people's questions that have been given to me over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and then I can use those for July's. Okay, so basically these the next set of questions, there's about, let's have a look at this, there's about 16 questions here, plus another, shall we say 8, so there's about 24 questions here. The first group are called Myth or Not, which is interesting. The first part of it is it true that vaccines are harmful and somehow our government is comprising our health with vaccines, and it is all part of this control and domination run by our government and cartels? One thing's clear, we're a lower frequency, and so the physical body needs help at times. And there is a lot of misinformation about vaccines. Vaccines are useful when we're incapable of healing ourselves or protecting ourselves energetically. So if we don't have the right level of sentience to be able to work in higher frequency ways, for instance, and use our energies to be able to protect ourselves from disease or virus, okay, then we are in the need of certain vaccines. The issue is there's been a lot of bad press about vaccines recently as being that they are dangerous. That is not specifically true, although we are, for instance, we are steered towards medication that we arguably don't need in a lot of cases. But some of these vaccines are necessary with certain individuals. So unless you're particularly confident in your ability to be able to stop disease or arrest any disease by just using your pure high frequency practice or meditation, then I would suggest that vaccines are necessary. And I really believe that because there's a lot of backfill people on the planet right now, that we're going to, and a lot of individuals are saying we don't need vaccines, that people who are not able to make a decision for themselves but follow the decisions of others are going to go down the path of not having vaccines, and we're going to be in a position where there is going to be epidemics of things like smallpox, things like measles, things like mumps and rubella, and all these different things are going to come back in again. So it's going to be quite an interesting time if we don't take a common sense approach. My healing approach is that sometimes we can cure things totally with energy. Sometimes it needs a bit of help from the gross physical aspect as well. And that's a balanced approach. Sometimes we can do miraculous things with energies if the individual themselves wants to be healed and it's within their life plan to be healed. But sometimes the level of dysfunction or disease or virus is so heavily embedded within the gross physical that they do need a bit of help on the gross physical frequencies as well. Okay. Number 2, is it true that fluorine in toothpaste calcifies and adversely affects our pineal gland? Is it true fluoride is put in our toothpaste by governments or suggested by the lower third dimensions or frequencies to keep us from our spiritual growth? I use toothpaste and sometimes it does have fluoride in it. A lot of what I use these days has got baking soda in. Fluoride has been put in the water, and it's also was put in the water by governments, because it's supposed to help with the, shall we say, maintenance of the teeth in a passive way. And so it's been put there for a long time. It does create a level of calcification. So what it does do, fluoride is like it helps to rebuild any bone-based structures. Does it affect or block the pineal gland or get clogged in a pineal gland? I'm being told that the pineal gland is very, very complicated and has its own filtering to remove any potential shall we say blockages or calcification as associated with fluorine intake to the physical. So it's got its own immune system, if you want to call it that, to help stop physical things from stopping its functionality. Okay. So it's not designed so it's not being specifically created to stop our spiritual growth. The original intention behind it was actually to help our teeth, stop our teeth going rotten. And basically, I think those countries that don't use fluoride, you can tell the difference in the quality of people's teeth versus those that do. Along with all these things, it's balance, isn't it? If you feel you're having too much fluoride, then don't use it. Use something else for a moment until you feel that your teeth need a little bit of a helping hand. Okay. Next question. Is it true that computer games are nano AI technology to take control of our kids and the games open portals in kids' bodies? No. It is simply addictive. So therefore karmic. Basically, in terms of AI, and in terms of anything really, there are potential ways in which subliminal messages can be broadcast through. But I'm not picking up that is a common thing that happens within certain computer games. I'm not picking up any specifically complicated algorithms associated with computer games that could be used to take control of children. It's simply addictive, and it's simply a fashion, basically. If we didn't have computer games, they would probably be doing something else. But right now, because it's interesting to use computers and play games and interact with individuals who are playing games in one of these internet-based things where you're all playing against each other across various different countries, then you can understand it becomes competitive. And being competitive is part of a low-frequency thought, behaviour, and action, because it's basically low frequency. When we've moved past the need to be competitive and be better than somebody else, then we will no longer need to play any sort of game, or irrespective of what it is, computer games or physical games. Next one. Is it true that when we watch TV, we open ourselves to be attacked by host parasites and portals and viruses from AI technology, because that is one way for entities to experience here or use our vehicle for this third dimension or third frequency environment? I'm picking up there was certainly a possibility of a small chance of a, shall we say, a doorway or a keyhole to be created with the old cathode ray tube technology, because there was magnetic resonance involved, and that is one of the ways we can create a locally high frequency. So other technologies such as OLED technologies, organic LED, and prior to that liquid crystal displays, didn't have the same type of magnetic technology. So as we've moved into a more energy efficient, but nevertheless more complicated method of displaying things, and looking at television and seeing our smartphones and computers, etc., the ability for entities to use those has been reduced, basically. So it was all to do with the magnetic effect and the magnets that we use to control the electron guns on the old cathode ray tube televisions. Okay, next question. What is my take that other higher frequency beings created portals in our bodies? Is the concept of portals true? How do they create portals? Is it by a consent, or how do we get rid of them? Well, basically, we do allow walk-ins at times for other individual aspects or souls to experience what we're experiencing in a passive way, and that means that they don't animate the body. Sometimes there is communication between these souls, and that can be classified as schizophrenia and all sorts of other psychological issues. But that can be cured, because once a healer understands this, they can reapportion the priority associated with the command and control of the physical form, and also they can shut them down in terms of their ability to communicate with the aspect that's animating the body right now. But in terms of portals, once an aspect or soul is occupying a gross physical body, or is incarnate, the only way that any entity can come into it is if they break through the natural protection that the human aura or the human energy field gives, which is a byproduct of the generation of energies and pulling of energies in through the chakras. So, and that needs then the aspect to be not paying attention. So we do get limited levels of connectivity with astral entities, and they can create a symbiotic relationship between the incarnate aspects, giving them feelings of grandeur or feelings of being bigger or more powerful, or giving them the ability to coerce individuals in the. So they can basically create a condition where there's a symbiotic relationship where they share energy. And the host being the human being, which gives energy to the astral entity to get various feelings of power. But generally an entity can't really move in unless it's invited in, which is something that we need to understand there. My personal feelings are that in real terms, an entity, we don't have a portal within us, basically, although there are individuals who can create portals if they put their mind to it. Okay. Next question, 6. What is my thought about the angelic Reiki? It is said that we access angels to assist us by coming into our aura and assist us in healing. If we have entities coming in to help us, and we invite them in, such as with trance mediumship, for instance, then it simply is what it is. It's allowing an entity in through prior agreement, and reference the previous question, by the way, to allow a particular entity to work through us. And so I wouldn't call them angels, I'd just call them different entities, disincarnate entities, or higher frequency incarnate entities that we've agreed to work with to effect some form of healing. And so what I would say, though, is that anybody who does allow another entity to work with them in a trance way, or move into their or animate their body, needs to be very careful and make sure that they're not going to be potentially taken advantage of later, because this can happen when you're not strong enough or powerful enough in terms of your own protection. So be very, very careful about this sort of thing. But I wouldn't call it angelic Reiki, because if you're involving another entity, it's not Reiki, because Reiki is a single energy. So it's simply using, or one way of using psychic surgeons, if you want to call it that. That's what they call it sometimes, when you invite other entities in to work with you or through you to effect healing. Next question is, when I do healing, I normally say I call on archangels, angels, ascended masters, galactic healers of 100% pure light above the 14th dimensional frequency to come into my aura and assist me with this healing. Since archangels and angels come from a religious belief, it seems nonsense to say all that, especially when you did not grow up with these concepts. When we say that what energy level do we access? Is it the fifth frequency, or in the third dimension, or fifth dimension? I do feel energy when I call and ask them to enter into my aura. Is it myself creating an illusion, or are the galactic entities or beings coming into our systems? Can I explain that? The words that you're using are sort of creating a protective barrier within yourself, so that you only attract the entities or beings that are pure in their intention to work with you, simply to help others and assist in removing their disease or psycho-spiritual issues. So if you want to call it that, it's a way of protecting yourselves. It's a way of ensuring that you're protected. You can use all sorts of different words. I don't bother, because I know that I'm okay. I know that I can work with anything that's there if I need to. Some people need to have mantras. Some people don't need to have mantras. Some people must use different physical functions to create protection around themselves, like, for instance, stones or crystals, for instance, or saging or smudging different parts of the room. Really, it doesn't matter as long as you feel that it works for you and it creates a safe environment for you. It's that whatever you use, if it makes you feel comfortable, it makes you feel safe, then fine, that's okay. But really, it we have to think beyond the religious context, and just you can use that. You can say that you are protected, and that you are impervious to entities or beings who would use the opportunity to work with you for detrimental reasons. Okay, just think of it in those sort of terms. Next question is, well, basically said there, what would you suggest to say before healings in place of what I currently say? How could we access the highest vibration in a given time for healings? I would just say, ask Source to work through you, and the energies of Source and the purity of Source, and that would be good enough. And then you know that you've got the right energies there. If you're being a little bit nebulous in who you ask, or you're just generally asking, then you could attract the attention of any particular entity or astral entity who's taking the opportunity to link in with you and work with you. Although they can work with you initially and then start to take your energy later, using our egos usually to confuse us into thinking that we're doing a good job. We're basically, all they're doing is taking our energy from us. So what I would say there is just focus on Source, focus on gaining pure connectivity with Source, and let Source do the work. And it doesn't specifically need to animate your body, although you might be guided or be given visualizations as to what you could do, for example, to be able to affect a good healing, but being a passive individual and asking a higher being, the Source, or I should say a higher entity, the Source, because the Source entity is an entity, not a being, to be able to work through you. Okay, well, I hope that helps. Next question is it true that smudging or the use of sage gets rid of evil spirits or entities that cannot digest their energy and attach to our body for energy sources? If yes, why is that? If not, what are the benefits of saging using frankincense oil for clearing? What are we clearing then? Is it the correlation of these essential oils and scents with green prana? Anything physical is an interface. If you're using sage to smudge a room, or using crystals in various different corners of a room to disperse so-called low-frequency energy, or protect yourself from low-frequency entities, then you're using the crystals or the sage as an interface between you and your intention. Just sit down, use your intention to be clean and clear, and the room that you're working in is clean and clear, and that'll be good. And that's good enough, really. Tarot cards, they're a physical interface. Pendulums, a physical interface. Anything else, such as oils, such as balms, such as incense, they're all physical interfaces that we sometimes lean on to assist us in our ability to link in with the higher frequencies associated with the multiverse and its environment, or Source and its multiverse, to be able to affect a better healing process and have a clean environment to do it. Okay, that's the way to think about it. Another way to do it is to use the psychic shield that's on my website, and you can project it around your house or your room and make that particular location clear as well. That's another way of doing it, which is quite a robust way. But having the intention to have the room clean and clear is usually good enough. If you've got the confidence in doing that, that's fine. Next question. How much truth is in some of the Chinese way of thinking that if you're not a good person, you can reincarnate as an animal or as a poor person or disabled? some sort of payback karma. I assume this is a myth. Yeah, basically we could, but we don't incarnate as a lower into a lower vehicle. Basically, we could incarnate into the animal vehicles. We could incarnate into the plant vehicles. We incarnate into the mineral vehicles, basically. But we don't, because we don't gain anything from it. An animal an animal soul or aspect could incarnate into a plant vehicle or a mineral vehicle, but it couldn't incarnate into a human vehicle because it's too high. That takes a lot of evolution before they can do that. But we can go into all those different levels. But the problem is that there's no evolutionary benefit to us by doing it. So from that perspective, we need to think of it in terms of we are a very powerful, very highly sentient entity, even though we're smaller aspects of our twin energetic selves, and there is no benefit to us, evolutionary benefit to us, going into a lower body, so to speak, or a vehicle that doesn't give us the same advantage for evolving, so to speak. So this is basically a way of controlling people. This thing about if you're not a good person, you'll become an animal, you become an ant or or a cockerel. It's complete nonsense. Basically, it's a way of controlling people. Next question: is it a myth that mirrors are portals? Yes, mirrors are simply a reflection of frequency, which is in the visible range, light. That's as simple as that. Having said that, anything can become a portal if you assign the right energies to it, and you're powerful enough to do that. So that's another thing to think about. What is the benefit of one chanting for 8 times? What is the significance of the number 108? Simply chanting or creating a mantra is creating a focus. And the more that you can create that focus with the use of using a mantra or chanting, the better the outcome of the focus associated with that chanting or the mantra. It's as simple as that. It's just creating a focus, and chanting with this Om or other mantras associated with success or abundance is simply a way of focusing on it. Prayer is a very loose way of focusing on it as well. So, from that respect, I would suggest that there's no significance in numbers, although if you want to create a mantra, repeat it 12 times, because 12 is an auspicious number, because it repeats itself throughout the structure of the origin. But that's it. It's an interesting number. It would give you enough time to focus on what you're doing and settle down. Some people need more repetition within their mantras or their chanting to create the focus. Other people need less. Okay, so I hope that particularly helps there. Next question. Please state whether each of our fingers corresponds to each of the chakras, whether wearing a specific colour, precious stone, or a specific finger in a specific finger, like a ring for instance, or strengthens a specific chakra, whether specific precious stones, colours could protect our aura or create an auric shield by wearing that on our fingers. For example, black stone like tourmaline on the middle right finger supposed to create a shield of protection, or green precious stones wearing on the right hand middle finger is to enhance the healing for cleaning purposes and also keep our aura clean. Please clarify and specify. Basically, if it's a physical focus, it's a personal authority that we give ourselves to allow ourselves to be able to do this stuff. Anything that is physical is really a crutch. It's something that we use to say, oh, I've got this on, I'm now clean. Oh, I've got this on, I'm now able to do meditation. Oh, I've got this on, I can do healing, for instance. It's simply a physical interface to give ourselves permission to be able to do something. We don't need it. Simple as that. So a lot of this stuff about, do this or do that and do the other is really complete nonsense. You know, we don't need to have crystals around us. Crystals are useful, by the way. They do provide a function. They do provide various different healing characteristics. They can be programmed to do a number of different things, and they can be programmed to create a clear environment. But if you're the sort of individual who is confident enough in your energetic functionality, then you don't really need any of this at all, because you can do it, and you don't need to have something to focus on. It's a bit like there's a story about Merlin as a wizard, and when he was an apprentice, he was said there's a number of different wizards. There's wizards who use incantations or spells. There's wizards who use their hands or an object such as a staff to be able to help them with focus and project their energies, and there's those who do by pure thought. And the story goes that Merlin said, I'm going to be a wizard of pure thought. He didn't quite get there. He ended up being a mixture of an incantation and the use of the hands or a staff to be able to project his energy. So he got confused and got with the gross physical aspect of it and lost his confidence, and maybe the frequencies went lower around him, and it meant that he had to do this sort of thing to be able to create a focus for himself. Okay, next question. Is it true that when we meditate collectively as a group, we expose ourselves energetically to energies of the group, and we could contaminate or create energetic links that are not of benefit to us? That depends upon the intention of the meditation of the group, of the individuals within the group, and the intention of the meditational group leader, basically. But if you intend to meditate collectively in a group for a common cause, then you create a synergetic effect, which is the square of the number of individuals, basically. So if you have 5 people in a group, it's like 5 times 5 is 25. So it's like having 25 people there. The thing is here that in real terms, what we need to understand is that if we're going to meditate, then we need to make sure that the intention of the individuals, each individual within the group, is consistent with our own. And if we're happy with that, then we don't get any contamination or any energetic links between them that are not beneficial to us. Okay, the next question is, who is Abraham Hicks and what are their collective goals? Well, I think the question, who are Abraham Hicks, is who are the people who work with the Abraham Hicks ideas. Well, basically they are individuals who've got an idea about the law of attraction, really, and the way to work in a positive way and focus. Fairly low grade, but nevertheless beneficial for those who want to work in that particular way, provided you are pure in your application of some of the ideas. But really all they're doing is creating a thought process where you can create whatever you want to create around yourself, like creating your own reality, for instance, or creating your own level of abundance or state of beingness, or creating a condition where the individuals of same and self-mind are around you. So basically they are creating another way of seeing how to work with the energies associated with the universe by being positive in our affirmations, so to speak, of what we want to experience and work with, and and attract to ourselves. Okay, so I think it's a reasonable thing, but I'd see it as a stepping stone for most people who are listening into this particular satsanga. Next question: is Earth hollow at the centre? Is there life and atmosphere in the centre of the Earth? Is there a sphere opening both poles, north and south, and the north and south poles of the Earth? Does the Shambhala city in the inner Earth in existence, or is it a myth? Are inner Earth people living in inner Earth? What is their frequency level? What is their intentions? There are. This is all misinformation or misunderstanding, basically. There are entities that live within the frequencies of the Earth that you would call inside the Earth, but they're a higher frequency, so they are able to work within the Earth, but maintain a different frequency within the Earth. So they would be experiencing existence in incarnate state as we are here, but they can do it within the Earth, but because they're a higher frequency. So in effect, they would have areas where they can move in and out of the Earth. If you want to call it the North and South Pole, you could do. I wouldn't suggest it is that. It can be anywhere really. If they can move their frequencies, or they are of a naturally higher frequency where they can create an environment for themselves within the Earth, then they don't particularly need to have it in one particular pole. It can be anywhere. But my understanding is that there is another. There's a plethora basically of different entities that are incarnate entities that are observing us and working on the planet. And there's one particular other sentient entity who is part of the Earth. There's not just us and the dolphins. There's another one as well, and they exist also within the Earth as well. But they're a higher frequency, and they can move around the inside of the Earth the same way as we move around on the outside of the Earth. But it's not an environment with an atmosphere as we would know it. It's a higher frequency environment that exists within the structure of the gross physicality of the Earth. Okay. It's a good question though, because people think of it in terms of how we experience gross physical, but it's not. It's a different frequential level. That means, and there's also different frequential incarnate aspects or beings or aliens, you want to call them, that are here now. It's just we can't see them. The problem is with incarnate mankind is what we can't see, taste, touch, or feel. We think either it doesn't exist, is complete nonsense, or can't possibly be in the same environment as ourselves. But it can be. And radio waves are proof of that, and so are all the different other radiation-based information that we can get as well. Microwaves, one thing, gamma rays, X-rays, etc., etc., etc. They're all different things that we don't see. We can't touch and taste and feel, but they're nevertheless there, and we do work with them. And that's the same with these entities. They are in the Earth, but they don't need a physical environment that we've got on the outside of the Earth. Okay. Next question is, how about sound activations? How much truth is it? Can we activate ourselves with a sound bath? And what and how can we activate? What sound bath and sound instrument would you recommend to assist us in getting more connected in activating or linking our RNA with our DNA? Sound is frequency. It is gross physical frequency. So you're not going to do an awful lot with sound that you can hear. If you've got sound that you can't hear, then it would assist in raising the gross physical frequencies a little bit. But you're better off doing something like opening your chakras to raise your frequencies. And in terms of linking our RNA with our DNA, that's a function of the human form and the energetic templates that create the gross physical aspects of the human form. Trying to manipulate those, other than for therapeutic means, and by somebody who knows what they're doing, would be detrimental. So I wouldn't suggest we particularly do that. So I would think about that. If you try to manipulate your RNA and how it interacts with DNA, you might start to create all sorts of problems like tumours and those sorts of things in the body. But in terms of sound activation, chant Om more than once, more than 10 times, more than 12 times, continuously in a dedicated way for a couple of hours. That will raise your frequencies. That's the best form of sound activation if you want to. Okay, there's another question here from a previous Satsanga. This is from the January the 2018 Satsanga. I said that microwaves are holistic. And the question is, I understand or understood microwave technology is harmful for our body, but what do you mean by calling it holistic? And what is your take on the use of microwaves? Microwaves are very focused frequencies that have the capability of cutting through things, basically, if we use them properly. But they've got a lot more uses to them than standard frequency that we use for radio technology, for instance. So by calling it holistic, it's got a more the only way to call it is it's more three-dimensional than radio waves. If radio waves are two-dimensional, that means two-dimensional as a metric, not as an item of structure in the multiverse, i.e. Length and width. Then microwaves would be length, width and height. Now clearly analog radio waves are broadcast in a spherical way, or a way that is consistent with the transmitter, but microwaves are, although the transmission is spherical, the way that they can be used is two-dimensional, so to speak, in terms of height and width. Although when you start to use them and rotate the start point, for instance, with things like manipulating and multiplexing the information on radio waves by changing the angle of phase, for instance, then it becomes something different. But microwaves are holistic because there's much more we can do with them. Consider them as being three-dimensional within the sphere of projection of that information, but they're also very directional as well. So they're directional in so much as when you project them, they project themselves like a tube, so to speak, when they're moved. So they are more three-dimensional as a metric, not as a piece of structure associated with the multiverse. So I hope that that's useful. In terms of using them as a communication medium, they're very directional. So although they're three-dimensional in terms of their structure, in terms of their structure as a metric, they're not. They're very directional. Okay. Next question. So that's saying August 2018 follow-up questions. So next set of questions, 7 questions, and we can go into the meditation. Okay, next one. How do we change RNA to be more linked or connected with our energetic templates for DNA to work better in our physical incarnate vehicle? How do we change or upgrade our RNA to interact better energetically? How do we change or modify the way RNA interacts physically so we can be more connected and less in the gross physical? We don't use RNA. Simply, we connect more with the energetic by using our sentience, by concentrating, by meditating, by focusing, by doing the traversing frequencies work, by doing Kriya Yoga, etc. These sorts of different things, by chanting Om and raising our frequencies this way. We do it by these means. The effect in the RNA is really just working on the gross physical, because RNA, although it has functions in the spiritual physical, it is there to act as an interface between the spiritual physical and the gross physical, in terms of it controls or programs DNA, and then acts physically as a medium for the DNA to broadcast what the DNA's program is, which is given to the DNA via the RNA spiritually or energetically from the energy templates to various different cell proteins to allow the cells to become what they are. And then that is fed back via the RNA to the DNA, and then from the physical aspect of RNA, and then the DNA then tells that to the RNA is like a checksum type of thing, like a check to make sure it's all happened properly, and then that goes back to the energetic template. So to be more connected, it's more of a connection of sentience rather than a connection of the physical body. So work on things like Kriya Yoga, the traversing the frequencies work, opening your chakras to raise your frequencies. You'll become more connected that way. So work on raising your frequencies through meditation rather than trying to do it physically, and that's the way forwards. Second question again. So this is probably the 15th, 16th, 17th, actually the 18th, actually the 19th question. How could we have one gross physical chakra instead of 3 gross physical chakras? That's a function of the individual working on themselves and being a higher frequency and needing a higher frequency vehicle. So if we have a higher frequency vehicle, then it's not so connected into the gross physical. So it doesn't need to have 3 gross physical or chakras. because it hasn't got three gross physical templates. It's got one template associated with the gross physical, a composite template. It's got one chakra associated with the templates in the gross physical, which is a composite chakra. So that's how we have one gross physical chakra rather than three. And those individuals who have lifted their frequencies up can migrate into this condition in a single lifetime if they work on themselves. And some people are born like this. Some people are naturally a higher frequency because they've come to do some specific work which is higher frequency. Okay, and therefore they would have one gross physical chakra, one gross physical, one composite gross physical chakra, one composite gross physical template, and then you've got the other four spiritual physical templates which are there, and four spiritual physical chakras. So that'll be chakras 4, 5, 6 and 7, and energy templates 4, 5, 6 and 7. Okay, good question. No, thank you. Next one is, if soul code is life plan or life goals, how could we learn to read our soul code or life plan so we can fulfill our plan better by understanding our journey better? Meditate. Basically, it's understanding ourselves and feeling ourselves and working with our intuition. If something feels right, we're supposed to be doing it, then it's part of our life plan. Something feels wrong, we're not supposed to be doing it, so it's not part of our life plan. It's almost as simple as this, that we have to meditate and work with ourselves and use our intuition, which is, of course, clairsentience, if you want to call it that, to be able to understand what our next job is, what our next role is, what our next piece of work is, basically. If something feels right, it's part of our plan. If something feels wrong, it's not part of our plan. And if something feels very wrong, or we get ill because we're doing it, it's because we're being definitely told it's not part of our life plan. Okay, next question is, what are the geometric structures for different energies? Can I provide a table of geometric structures? What kind of main energies could link up together, and what are each energy functions, and how can we use them better? I don't know. I don't know what the geometric structures are for different energies. There was I believe in Beyond the Source 2, there was a description there, a loose description of certain things associated with frequencies and what they could do, and different sacred geometry. But it wasn't like this this shape can do this shape with this material could do that. Maybe it's a question I'll ask in Beyond the Origin. I'll have to make a mental note of this, because it's not something I've focused on, or probably could focus on straight away, because I see that would be quite a big chunk of work as it is. Let me just make a mental note of that and put it into the list of things I've got to discuss in Beyond the Origin. So, geometric structures for different energies, and a table of those geometric structures and what they'll do, and what energies that could link together. Okay, but look at Beyond the Source 2, I think you might find some stuff in there. Next question is, you said we do not have implants, but we have energetic links with other individuals that have cohesiveness. How do we get rid of cohesive energetic links or karmic links? How do we detect them? How could we remove these links to get to our personal power back? Is there any specific chant or command or removal, I should say, of the contract that we can use to remove them? I'll tell you what, let's use that in the next meditation for July, because it's actually a function of the book I'm writing now about healing, where removing of links between individuals, either ourselves in past lives as a past life link, other individuals as karmic links, and ourselves in karmic links in past lives, and with other individuals that aren't karmic. So that's in the book I'm working on there for healing, and I think it would be a good meditation to remove these links in July. So let's do that then. Let's use that for the basis of the meditation in July, removing links with other individuals. Well, good question, and not one for this particular set of questions. It's actually quite a lot of work involved with this. Okay, so number 6 on this list from the Satsang that was in August 2018. The next one: how could we have karmic energetic links that act like implants? When you said karma is an attraction to low frequency thoughts, behaviours, actions and stimulus or sensations of certain behaviour. It seems like we're saying we have karmic links. It connects us to another entity by way of our prior actions, and this is not aligned with what I understood of my definition of karma. Karma is anything that attaches us to the gross physical frequencies of the multiversal environment. And it doesn't need to be specifically thoughts, behaviours and actions. That's the thing that most people forget. Karmic links are things where we have, for instance, a detrimental action against one individual that we've given to that individual, that to neutralise it, we need to have the similar thing given back to us. For instance, if I betray somebody in one life, then I would need to be betrayed in another life by that person. That's a karmic link. So karma is really, it's a really difficult thing for people to understand. Some people only understand it in terms of cause and effect in that way that I've just described. Some people think about it in terms of it's a link to the gross physical, but it's anything that can link us. We can even have a karmic link with ourselves. So it's quite a complicated thing. I would suggest that the Avoiding Karma book is reread in this particular instance, because that will go through a lot of different ways in which you can remove karma or avoid karma in this particular life. But karmic links with other individuals are usually to do with cause and effect. Karmic links with ourselves are usually to do with issues with past life experiences. Okay. And also karmic links with ourselves can be how we interact with others in certain conditions or in certain environments, or for instance if we have any phobias or fetishes, those sorts of things we need to work with, or addictions for instance, that can be a karmic link. But again, certain behaviour also creates karma as well. Okay, so I hope that explains that little bit there. Again, there's a bit of this in the book I'm writing on in terms of healing, how to remove links as well. So that could be considered to be the possibility for adding into this meditation we do next week, because you can remove links with people, whether it's karmic or not, or you can focus on the karmic aspects as well and remove them. But in general, that particular removal of a link is the same process, whether it's karmic or not. Okay. And the last question, what is the mechanics to move from one event space to another? Well, it's simply using the intention. We move from one event space to another when we have a choice. We have a choice to do this or that. Go one way rather than another way. Buy this or not buy it. Maybe we have two choices, maybe we have three choices, maybe we have four choices. This is something that we have to work with and basically think about. In terms of consciously moving from one event space to another, that's a real high function, and I would suggest that only extremely evolved individuals can do, and know that they're in that event space. But consider this, we have moved into an event space we shouldn't be in, collectively. Think about it. With all the nonsense that's happening around the world right now, we're not in the same event space we were. We're experiencing, and we've all collectively chosen to experience this, an alternative group or global event space, to experience something that is quite clearly happening with no apparent control of ourselves. We can all see that what was happening is wrong, but we can't change it. And that's because we've moved from one event space to another. So if we all have the intention to move from one particular, shall we say, knowledge system or desire system to another, we'll do it. And we've actually done that. And the function of inflational triangulation has pulled a lot of other individuals, us, into it as well. And there are some individuals who've moved into it who are there to say, actually, this isn't the reality we're supposed to be in, and to work within it, but not be part of it, whereas others are immersed in it as well. So it's moving from one event space to another is simply by using your intention to change your reality, so to speak. Although do note that realities aren't event space, they are parallel environments. We can have realities within an event space. Okay, but it's all about changing. So you can meditate on this and change your environment and change the things that happen around you. And that allows you to move from one event space to another because you're using the intention to change your environment, your reality, so to speak. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Okay, so let's have a look at the meditation, which is to become more expansive. Lots of questions there. Thank you for all those questions from FN over the months, and thank other people who've got their questions as well lined up for July. There's a lot of questions lined up for July, and they're very diverse and searching. So thank you very much. So, meditation on being expansive. So let's close our eyes, sit in our straight-backed chair, if we're fortunate to have a straight-backed chair, or sit in a cross-legged position. Palms or hands placed, palms uppermost on our upper thighs, just about where the upper part of the legs meets the lower part of the body. And close your eyes if you haven't already done so. And focus on the point in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose, which is the origin of the third eye. It's a similar place for the third eye chakra, which is a different thing. I want you to just very simply move your focus of your attention away from this area of the third eye, but to also encompass the rest of your body. Your sentience is within a shell. The shell is the human form. It tends to be concentrated on the area where the eyes are. Okay? Our sentience isn't in the head, in the brain, it's in the soul seat, which is roughly in the same location as where the front and rear aspects of the heart chakra are located. So you could suggest it's in the center of the body, behind the heart chakra, the front heart chakra. So that's where our sentience is. It's just that we think it's in our head because we see through our eyes that it's in our head. If our eyes were in our stomach, we would think that our sentience or our intelligence or that which we are is in the stomach and not in the brain. Okay. So move out of the head into the rest of the body. Don't worry about the organs and the bones and the muscles and the sinews and the venous system and the nervous system. Just think of the skin as being a barrier. The outside of the body. And everything else is just empty space. So feel your sentience move away from the head and fill the whole body. You've now expanded away from the head into the rest of your human form. So if you change your focus, for instance your right foot's big toe, you will be inside your right hand foot's big toe. You change your focus to the left hand middle finger, the tip of the left hand middle finger, your sentience is in the tip of the left hand middle finger. Let's change your sentience so that it is focused on the point of the soul seat, which is behind the heart chakra, which is at the center of the front of the chest, in middle of the sternum, but actually in the center of the body, at the point where the front and rear aspects of the heart chakra join together. See yourself in this point, but also see your consciousness or your sentience also occupying every part of the human body at the same time, concurrently. Now, just as you've moved your consciousness or your sentience, the focus of your sentience away from the head, and you've seen that you can move around the body, and you've placed it at the soul seat, now expand it into the room. So you're now in the room. Your whole of your sentience, your beingness, or your entityness in real terms, is in the room. So the whole room is you. You've expanded in from your head into the body, from the body into the room. Now let's expand that sentience into the rest of the house. So your sentience fills not only the body or the room, but it also in the house. So the whole house is you. You've expanded your sentience into the house. Now we can make a jump. We can jump away from the house and fill the city that our house is in. Allow your sentience to spread out into the city. You're in every house, every road, every drain, every pipe, every cable, everything associated with the city. So you fill the whole city. Now jump from the city to the country that you're in. So your sentience fills the whole of the country. Feel that you're in the country. Everything that you are is the country. Now expand that into the whole of the earth, so that the whole of the earth is your sentience. You are occupying all of the volume of the earth with your sentience. Now let's occupy the whole galaxy. Just use your intention to occupy the whole galaxy. So your sentience occupies the whole galaxy. What do you experience? What do you see in your mind's eye? What's happening in the galaxy in totality? Just change your focus to one or two areas and then you'll see what's going on. Now change your intention so that you occupy the whole of the universe, the physical universe, this rather amorphous bubble or sphere of structure. And all those galaxies that are within the universe are occupied by your sentience. We'll just leave it at this particular universe at the moment. You could, if you wished, move out into expanding your sentience into, in fact let's do so, all of the frequencies, the 12 frequencies associated with the physical universe. So you're not only occupying the first 3 frequencies with your sentience within the physical universe, you're also occupying the other 9 frequencies associated with the physical universe. A total of 12 frequencies. So you've expanded yourself from the little location within your head to the rest of the body, to the room in your house, to your house, to the city that your house is in, to the country that your city is in, to the earth, to the galaxy that you're in, to the universe, and then the universe with all its frequencies. Feel all that is happening in this physical environment in its concurrent way. Allow yourself to be everywhere at once, but also allow yourself to focus on certain small areas as you wished, allowing your sentience to just focus on one point and then another point and then another point, whilst also still being within all of the universe on those 12 frequencies. Okay, so withdraw now your expansiveness and start to bring it back into your human form. So you move it away from those 12 frequencies just into the 3 frequencies of the physical universe. Notice how you feel smaller. And then you occupy only, withdraw it just into the galaxy that you're in, the Milky Way. Then withdraw it just into the planet that you're in. Then withdraw it just into the country that your house is in. Then withdraw it into the city that your house is in. Then withdraw it into the house itself. Then withdraw it into the room that you're sitting in meditation now in this house. Then withdraw it into the body, this shell that your sentience is occupying. Then finally you can reposition it in your head if you wish. Slowly come back into the room, knowing that you can use this process again to become expansive, and allow this expansiveness to give you information. You can ask questions whilst in this state of expansiveness. High frequency questions get high frequency answers. So there we are. If you've come back into the room, just come back in slowly, open your eyes, take a drink of water to help ground you. And I'll thank you very much for listening to this satsanga in June, okay, the 29th of June 2019, in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And I thank you again for all listening into it and taking part in the meditations and asking your questions. And thank you again. If you do ask any more questions between now and July, they'll be put into August's satsanga. So just be aware that there may be a month's delay. I've now got a lot of questions which I can do for July's satsanga. So thank you very much for joining in. Thank you for listening. And namaste to you all. And God's love to you all.